Today I'm talking about the scourge of depression. Hardly anyone is unaffected in some way, whether you who are listening have had it or have it even now, or someone that you care very deeply about. Maybe they're struggling with depression. I've titled this Depression, Source and Solution. I have a diagram that I'd like to walk you through to help you understand better with the visuals what the true source of depression is. This diagram is titled Cycle of Relational Distress. It begins with understanding that the relationships that we have with those most important to us have more effect in what happens within us and in our bodies than anything else in life. Think about it. Out of anything that's ever happened to you over the years, what hurts more? Maybe a traumatic event where your car got wrecked, but you were all right. Or a situation where maybe you had a fire in your home. But what about a time when somebody very important to you hurt you in a way that caused terrible betrayal? Or they left you or made you feel as if you were not important? According to all research, the impact of relationship pain is the most difficult pain for anybody to endure. So as we look at this relational distress cycle, I want you to notice that it begins with offense. It's impossible in living with the people that we care about not to offend one another. I often like to say the people that we love the most are the ones who hurt us the worst. We expect more out of them. So if they come up short, then it hurts more because of who they are to us. When we are offended by someone very important, we feel a sense of betrayal, a sense that that's not the person I would expect to treat me in that way. Maybe sometimes the offenses are not intentional, but they still hurt. It's possible they don't even know that they're offending us. But when they do, there will be a response within us. After the betrayal begins to pour forth from within, we feel this sense of rejection. Rejection is probably the most prevalent wound among all humanity. Rejection is the sense that when we're interacting with the people that we care about most, that we're not important to them. We feel as if we can be in their presence, but they're not really invested in us, or they're not wanting to be in the world of what our interest is. So even something so subtle as a person detached from us can cause that sense of rejection. So you see, after the betrayal occurs, as we walk down this cycle, you'll see that there will be emotional pain. Now, emotional pain creates stress. And one of the things we hear about most from doctors when we have our checkups is, how much stress do you have in your life? Do you know that stress can lead to heart disease or stroke? Do you know that stress can cause all kinds of physical maladies? Then, in our emotions, hurt and anger also are the result of that betrayal. If you didn't get hurt or angry after somebody very important to you offended you, you wouldn't be normal. But you have to be real about the fact that that's going to affect you. I like to actually add this, that it won't just affect you, it may infect you. So you see that the pain from people we care about can cause outward expressions, also inward expressions of implosion. At that point, you feel like a victim. A victim is someone who has been offended by another party. And when you're a victim and you have stress and you have anger and you have hurt, all of which are emotions and feelings within your soul, inside you, that will create what's called neurotransmitter deregulation. Now don't get worried. I'm not going to go into some sort of medical explanation to the point we don't understand what we're doing here. But I think we need to understand enough to know that there is a physiological, a bodily response to emotional distress. And when we feel in a way that we don't have motivation, we feel that we don't have energy, down, one of the biggest words to describe depression is I feel down. And we have problems with sleep, problems with eating. There's so many other types of afflictions that we have as a result of the feelings that come from being in distress. Now, there are many neurotransmitters, but I'm going to just talk briefly about two. One is cortisol and the other is epinephrine. Now, cortisol is regarded as an emotional or mood neurotransmitter, meaning this, that when it begins to be manifest within our system, when it begins to come forth because of stress in our emotions, we will have a sensation where we have too little serotonin and too little dopamine. Now, these are hormones that come forth as a result of neurotransmitter deregulation. So when cortisol begins to increase, or I'm sorry, when it begins to decrease, the feeling of depression begins to pour forth. And we're not going to feel right. And this is why when you have testing done on the body, there's evidence that there's hormonal imbalances within your body that are making you feel depressed. Now, this is the problem when people go to look for the true source, because it appears as if it's a physiological problem from beginning to end. But the truth is, if the neurotransmitters, when they began to deregulate within you, were caused by stress within your emotions or your soul, and your emotions began to feel down and hurt and angry, which caused the neurotransmitters to come forth, then the real cause would be the stress from the relationship that has broken down. And if you only go back to the physical part, then you're going to be looking for a medication. And there's nothing wrong with that. Medications, I believe, are a gift from God. Every good and every perfect gift comes down from above, from the Father of lights. I believe medication is a good gift. But those who dispense it will be the first ones to tell you that the medication will not heal your depression. It is designed to treat your depression. There's another neurotransmitter there called epinephrine. Epinephrine is the one that releases noradrenaline and adrenaline to give you a sensation of elevated mood. This would be an upward sort of feeling. And that can often occur in a crisis situation. So once again, you have an event of a crisis. You could be in a situation where you're being hurt physically by someone very close, and you can't get away. And the stress will create the release of this epinephrine, and then you will feel this heightened mood because you have to be alert because of what is happening. I remember as a little boy when my parents were in struggles, I would be trying to go to sleep, but I would be in an elevated mood because the epinephrine was surging through my body because I was afraid that something might happen or someone might leave. I couldn't control that. That was there because of that stress. Now, we're focusing on depression, but I think you're seeing here that many, many disorders begin to emerge from problems in our relationships. So the part where I was talking about the drugs, the pharmacology we call it, but it's going to a pharmacy for particular pills to help alleviate the feeling of depression. Please understand that those pills can only artificially re-regulate neurotransmitters, meaning this, that the pill is designed to try to stabilize the feeling in your body, but the pill can never take away the stress in your soul. So wouldn't it be better, if we're truly looking for source here, to go back to the place where the betrayal happened in our relationship? Because our relationships with the people we care about connect at the soul level. Therefore, if they're going relatively well, we have a balanced situation within our neurotransmitters, and we don't feel the stress and we don't feel the sensation of depression. But at the same time, if we have tremendous conflict and feelings of betrayal, we're going to have depression. We're going to have heightened mood at times. So at this point, if it's not yet relieved, it will continue, and we will have other symptoms from the Diagnostic and Statistic Manual. Now, we don't have to talk about that big, thick book that psychologists like myself have to look at, which is a litany of names for afflictions and their symptoms. But just to say that there are many different symptoms or afflictions that come from stress in relationships, and they're found in the Diagnostic and Statistic Manual, referred to as the DSM. At 6 o'clock on this diagram, you will see that the disorders that occur can manifest outwardly, and I call that exploding afflictions like loss of temperament. Sometimes when people lose control because of a stressor in their lives, they are actually coming forth from a situation in their past in terms of relationship betrayal that they have never dealt with. And the rage that's coming out on someone in the here and now, in the present moment, is actually connecting with rage that has never been resolved from the past. They don't know it. It's been there for years. That has to be cleansed out. That same rage, though, in certain people will implode. It will not explode out, so it's harder to see. The imploding rage creates depression. So here we are again now, looking at the fact that the way the affliction manifests, whether inward or outward, will still debilitate the person. And those of us that have experienced depression in our lives, as I have, over periods of my life where depression would get a foothold, coming from situations that I had not healed or restored within my soul. But I'm also here to testify to the fact that I went through the pain of my relationships, and with that, got relieved of my depression. So there was proof, at least in me and many, many others that we work with, that if the depression is the result of relationship betrayal, then taking people through that pain to the other side, to what we call victory, restoration, and healing, can actually take away the symptom of depression from the root of betrayal and rejection in the relationship. I want you to see that there are other disorders that are in the diagram, such as manic episodes and such as fear like panic attacks, anxiety, hyperventilation. You've heard of people just starting to can't get their breath because they're taking in too much oxygen. They're actually getting too much oxygen, and they feel like they can't bring themselves to a place of peace. That's fear. That fear is rooted more in the rejection of their lives than anything else. And you will find that fear and depression are almost inextricably tied together. That when you address the root of the one, you will also address the other. Therapy oftentimes will come in at this point if it has already not been part of this person's treatment. Now, let me explain therapy. Therapy is the process of walking through the affliction. But therapy does not always take a person through the source or to the source of that affliction. And oftentimes therapy, although it can make a person feel better, sometimes struggles to get at the root cause, where the person can live above the depression that once owned them. I use that word own them because I refer to the affliction of depression as something that's bigger than the person that has it. Those that have never experienced depression look at a depressed person sometimes and say, snap out of it. What's wrong? Get up, get over it. And that's like telling a person with infectious cancer, imagine if the surgeon said, snap out of it, get up, get over it. Well, that would be certainly the worst thing that you could say to somebody that has experienced this. It's bigger than them. It's in them. The idea is to take them through it. That sounds like something that nobody would really want to volunteer for. But the truth is, there's 4 things that we do when we are offended by someone very important in our lives, particularly as children. We run from it, we deny it, we cover it, and we medicate it. None of those will heal it. Some of those may treat it, like the medication, but none of those will eradicate it. In a fallen world with fallen people, God designs a plan for us to turn around, walk back through that pain, and come out the other side owning it. Because until we do that, that pain owns us. See, there's a difference between your past owning you and you owning your past. The beauty of the model that we have is it's designed for you to actively go to a place from affliction to a place of victory and restoration. As I now continue on this, I want you to see that it continues to get worse, and you see that toxic relationships can develop from having a toxic soul. That is, if your emotions are toxic, with bitterness, anger, and resentment. Those are the very things that keep the depression locked within your heart. And when it's locked in there, the increasing intensity of the feeling and bringing you down, the lack of motivation, the lack of desire to get up and go to work or do your responsibilities, the inability to stay focused, the feeling at times that you're paralyzed, that a small, simple event, like maybe making coffee, can take 20 minutes when it's a 3-minute event. All of these types of experiences are evidence of the fact that this depression has gotten a foothold in you. Collateral damage will also occur. There are those folks that believe if someone's depressed and they're imploding the pain and anger of their lives, it's better than if they exploded it out and took someone's dignity with their rage. And it seems that way. But God says man looks on the outward appearance. The Lord looks at the heart. So the truth is, the infection of the person with depression is the same as the person who's lost control and rage. And if you've ever talked with anyone, or you yourself have experienced living with a depressed person, I counsel many adult children that grew up in a home where their mother or their father was depressed. They had the fear of bringing people home for fear that they would find her dead in her room, because she would lock herself in the room every day. And she would say things like, "Oh, I don't want to live anymore. Oh, I think I'll take my life. When you get home today, I'll be gone." If that doesn't affect other people, I don't know what does. And these children lived in the bondage of those statements, making them feel as if they ever brought anything truthful that might cause distress, that they would be responsible for pushing their mother or their father over the edge. Now, the truth is, they wouldn't be responsible, but that's not the way they're made to feel. So depression can be very manipulative to the people around the depressed person. When you look at this closely, the sources seem to be deeper than what we originally thought. I want you to see at 9 o'clock now we get to the place that I refer to as regrettable behaviors. People that are deeply depressed and will begin to do things such as I just shared, like the manipulation with the feeling of not wanting to be around. Using it when they don't want people to say things to them that may make them uncomfortable. Well, now, there you go, making me feel depressed again, making me feel like I'm not important, rejecting me all over again. And the truth is that that's not healthy for them to get away with that. It's important to look at them, tell them, "I love you, but I got to tell you the truth. And if you do take your life, you're responsible for that. That's the last thing I want." See, we can find ourselves getting drawn into that bondage. Antisocial behaviors are the behaviors of personality disorders and things that we would do in that state that we would not normally do if we were not afflicted with depression. We would be desperate with people. We would do things in desperate ways that would make people feel very uncomfortable. We would withdraw and detach, sending a message to those we love, "You're not worthy of being loved anymore." You see, those are regrettable behaviors. Sending a message to spouse or children, "If you don't feel my pain, I'll make you feel my pain. I feel alone like nobody cares, so I'm going to freeze myself off from you and detach and shut down and make sure you know what it's like to not have anybody around." See, it just gets deeper in the place of darkness. And then, of course, it's possible to commit crimes. You probably heard recently of a CEO who bilked many people out of money. You know, the truth is that he was medicating his depression with greed. That sounds bizarre. Well, wait a minute. I saw him on television. He didn't look down. What you don't understand is depressed people don't always appear down. Man looks on the outward appearance. The Lord looks at the heart. Depressed people can actually do things in a high energy state when they're medicating. We call it self-medicating the wound of depression. And in that self-medicating, there may be illicit deals from a monetary point of view, illicit sexual activity, illicit drugs, consumption of alcohol at levels that they're just losing themselves in a binge, shopping all the time to put a tire on to temporarily medicate the wound. Dr. James Dobson says it this way: any attempt to salve a wound within the soul other than Christ to heal us is like trying to fill up a 5-gallon bucket with a 3-inch hole in it. As quick as you're filled, you're empty, and you got to go to the trough for more. And you could live 3 lifetimes, you will never satisfy it. So as we come to the place of this source, true source of depression, let's not forget that the greatest impact within a person's life that could cause it will be from relational betrayal. For those of you that may struggle with that because you've heard all your life it's a biochemical problem, I'm here to agree with you. Once again, it's a biochemical problem. But biochemical problem does not mean that the biochemical part created it. The biochemical part came after the distress. Might there be situations where depression is caused by strictly a biochemical problem? You know, in order for my integrity to be sound, I have to say I got to keep that open for possibility. But let me put it this way. Going to the depth of recognizing relationship betrayals contributing to depression, and you checking that out and really looking carefully at that, even if that is not the true source, you have nothing to lose but a little bit of time investment. Because you see, if I'm wrong, you just lost a little time. But if you're wrong, and you stay at the biochemical part and just try to manage it the rest of your life, and it could be rooted in the place of betrayal and rejection within your soul, well then you'll never be free, because you'll never own the true pain of how people have hurt you and rejected you and violated you. And by the way, I want to make it clear, you never have to include them as part of the healing. If somebody has ever wounded you or hurt you in some way and you're at the hospital getting treated, they don't need to be there for you to be healed in the body. That's the same way with the soul. Never, ever predicate or condition your healing on whether or not the person who hurt you is part of it. You could wait till death do you part. Worse yet, what if they're deceased or whereabouts unknown? Now that means you just trapped yourself into a lifetime of pain because you think you need them to be a part of it. That's the good news. You see, they're accountable for how they hurt you, but you're responsible for getting the healing. And if you do that, you will have a whole different life ahead of you. Equally important, the people around you will be drawn to you in a way that you never imagined. Because you see, at 9 o'clock, the victim has become the offender. And that's how these afflictions go into further generations. Treatment and intervention is almost an absolute if it's not mitigated at this point. And some people, because of the scourge of depression and medicating in certain ways, you know, all these DUIs that are occurring, in some states they call them DWIs, driving while intoxicated, driving under the influence. These are people that are medicating pain in their lives with alcohol. They just happen to get in a car. So the crime is a DUI, another symptom. A problem in and of itself, but another symptom. But the truth is they're medicating pain from people that have hurt them or betrayed them. I'm not making the people that hurt them the villains. I'm just showing you that if you go back to the true source, that you can get the true healing. So as I close out this cycle of relational distress, I trust that you have been awakened in a place that you never knew before that could be the true source of your depression or those you care about most. And we're going to show you just a little clip It's very brief, but very powerful, of a Russian girl who came to the United States just 3 years ago. She's 17 now. She was left in the cold at an orphanage. It's like one of those stories you see in those old movies. Literally left for the orphanage to take over. Her mother tried to abort her herself. And the recoiling of this girl's legs pulled up into the womb and caused a crippling effect. Although you won't see that in the video, I want you to know what that did to her. And she would pull herself around on her arms at the orphanage while her legs dragged behind her. Thankfully, the family that took her in not only gave her the love that her mother did not give her, but they also gave her the medical attention she needed to start to be able to walk. One of the prettiest, most precious young ladies I've ever had the privilege to meet. Her name is Katya. But I want you to see, as she expresses to you both in Russian and then in English, a little bit of the letter to her mother, who she never really got a chance to meet again after she was left at the orphanage. Although every day of her life, she looked for that time when her mother would come back for her and tell her she loved her. And that created depression in her. And she has walked through that depression with us at one of our encounters. So take a look at this, and I'll be back with you.
Дорогая мама, когда ты отдала меня в чужой... Dear mom, when you left me with another people, and I didn't know what's happening to me. So when I came to orphanage, and my heart felt empty, and I didn't have any feelings to my heart, that I thought you didn't love me. As I sat next to my bed, cry out with my tears and thinking, where are you? But you weren't there in this moment. And I want you to give me kisses or hugs and say, it's okay, daughter, I'm with you, but you weren't there. As I touched here to another ladies here, and then I imagined that you were there as my mom, and I'm touching your hair and give you kisses and hugs. But it was just like in a minute and it's gone. When the time has come and I was ready to go to United States, I wrote you a letter with my excitement in my heart and thinking that you will write me back, but you never did. And I thought, I will never forgive you, but God put this love in my heart. This is why I forgive you and I love you, because it's all about God. Чтобы я простила тебя. Вот потому что я тебя люблю. Это все через любви Иисуса.
I don't know if that video that you just watched affected you like it affected me, but I trust that you're getting an idea that when somebody that important to you would hurt you to that degree by abandonment, and the feeling of rejection within your soul would cause such an unraveling, I don't know that you could be normal if that didn't happen, that you weren't unraveled. So if you look at this from a point of view that relational betrayal, even if it wasn't intentional, now that could be perceived as intentional, relational betrayal has the greatest effect upon the emotions of every human being. As we look at the relationship sequence, this is the primary diagram that it creates the pathway for us to go to a place of victory, restoration, and healing. And I'm not here to give you a full presentation. I want you to see that it exists. I want you to see that we know exactly where we're taking those who have said, I want to be free of that which has bound me for too many years. We start at 12 o'clock on the blue circle. The blue is symbolic. It represents the water of cleansing, healing. It washes, purifies, water. And at the point of relationship, we see that there should be a mutual connection and a trust connection. Mutual connection means that I should be getting an investment from the people who love me from the day that I'm born and come into the world. But we don't always get that experience from the people we care about most. And even as babies, even though our minds do not remember that we were left without affection, the truth is that the emotions imprint the fact that there's been rejection when we were infants. We will not be able to remember it, speak about it, but we will operate as if we have been compromised or made to feel as if we were not lovable. And this is why some children, as they grow, as toddlers, they oftentimes will be very guarded when someone reaches out to hold them because they're not sure that that person really cares for them because they didn't have that affection. So I want you to look at this from a perspective that it's possible even today that any depression that you might be feeling could be from a situation you do not remember or an experience in your life, just as Katya, the Russian girl. And then as you go forward, we see that relationships, no matter how healthy, go down the road of testing. A relationship that can't be tested is a relationship that can't be trusted. They're tested by offense. Wherever 2 or 3 people are gathered in this fallen world, we will offend one another. The question is this: will we go to bitterness or betterness? Will we go to vengeance to get back or to victory? Will we go to hate or to heal? The choice lies in the victim who was offended. And oftentimes in this fallen world, we do what's called a pain for pain exchange. And when that happens, we end up down this hurt, hate, harm sequence. It's the red road. The red in this case is the place of infection, not just woundedness, infection. If you think about on your skin, if a particular wound gets infected, it gets red. Red is also fire, like rage. We speak of rage as a firestorm. See, anger is a burning ember. It's something I control. It's a legitimate feeling in a fallen world. But anger is always defined as being in control. Now, folks have said to me, I've seen people lose control in their anger, and I say, okay, you've just defined rage. Start calling it that, because it's not an issue of semantics. It's an understanding that you can't manage rage. But these anger management programs attempt to do that, and they're trying to manage rage, when in truth, that they'll never be able to do it. So, hurt is the anger part, as you go down the sequence where a person detaches. But if that's not cleansed at that point, if that fire, that burning of that wound is not cleansed, just as on the body with the topical solution, it runs the risk of being infected over time. Well, that's what happens in the soul, particularly if the violation in the soul is repeated. You will often hear people say that, oh, I was whipped continually, or I was rejected all the time. And that is a repetitive sort of situation that took wound into infection pretty quickly. So it goes from hurt, then it goes into hate. And at this point, it begins to get bigger than the person that has it. And the hate, you see, creates a root of bitterness, whereby springing up many be defiled. You've probably heard that scripture verse in Hebrews 12:15, that out of the unseen root of bitterness springs forth a root of affliction. This is the depression. Now, there are many different fruit from that root. There can be one root with many fruit. But what's important here is to realize this, that if you just deal with the fruit and prune it, the tree continues to bear fruit. Why not go down underneath, kill the root, and all the fruit dies? And that's why we want to look at the solution part here that is coming forth. Now, you might be a little frustrated because I'm going to quit soon. And the reason I'm going to quit soon is because this is designed to bring you on to when I take you through my journal. So stay tuned for that part as we close out. You will see the journal come up in the picture, and the journal is a journey to take you to another place than you are now. So as we finish this red road, when I'm offended, first I hurt, then I hate, then I harm. And at the harm stage is when I am depressed, even at the bitterness stage. And at this point, the depression is going to be bigger than me. So I just want you to see the other side of the circle so you know where we're taking you. The other side of the circle talks about admission and grieving, getting back up on the blue, the healthy place, truly admitting the pain of my life. Then that takes me to confrontation and disclosure. You're not going to remember all this, nor do you need to. But the confrontation and disclosure is expressing to the people that hurt you what it did to you. And don't get excited. No one's going to be required in the healing process to ever directly confront the ones who have hurt them. After all, they could be whereabouts unknown or deceased. So the confront is not for the person who hurt you, it's for you. And the truth is that when you're able to do that, for the first time you begin to own the pain that previously owned you. You begin to be lifted out of that place of depression, out of that pit, that darkness. Begin to break free. And then the best road is up to victory. Notice it's an upward road. Victory, restoration, and healing. Victory leads to the place of the forgiveness, leads to the place of restoration, and allows that healing for your soul can occur. I will be so excited as the author and the creator of this Ministry of Reconciliation model. We actually call it Restoring Relationships. And even if you can't directly restore the people that hurt you, your soul can be restored from the pain that had once owned you. Your soul can be restored from the scourge of depression. Many don't even need the medications anymore. Although I had gotten to the place of medication, I was headed there. But I don't have the depression anymore. I'm not owned by it. God healed me of that. He is our great physician. Just as we go to an earthly physician for maladies in the body, we have a great physician in heaven who will restore our soul. So think about this, because on this very same webpage that you have been able to draw forth this brief presentation, you will have the opportunity to go live in a stream online so that you can call in or chat in questions. They'll be private. No one else will know them. And we will answer and address as many as we possibly can when that occurs, because I will take you through my journal that you will see up on the screen. So as I close out here, I want to tell you that I'm very grateful that you took the time to be on with me. And I want to say to you that if you're led to ask anyone else to be a part of this, we encourage you to do so, because you may actually save their lives.